Excellency Rotimi Amechi is here with us. Dr. Akobondu is here. His Excellency Senator David Bonaventure Mark is here. Dr. Kabiru Tanimu Turaki is here with us. I can announce arriving the governor of Oyo State, the forward-looking governor of Oyo State. His Excellency Oluseyi Makinde is in the building, accompanied by Kabiru Tanimu Turaki, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We also have seen His Excellency Senator Kwankwaso, the former governor of Kano State and the leader of the Kwankwaso movement. Senator Austin Akobundu, you're welcome. We see you here.
Welcome, His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde, FNSC, DSC, GSSRS. Seyi Ẹ̀dà. Mi ò gbọ́ Ibadan náà pé bí Seyi Ẹ̀dà.
Your Excellency, the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, GCON. Your Excellency, former Senate, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and National Chairman for African Democratic Congress, Senator David Mark. Let me also use my own national chairman, Barrister Tanimu Turaki SAN, national chairman of PDP, as a point of contact to recognize other national chairmen of various opposition political parties that are present here. Your Excellencies, former executive governors that are here present, the distinguished leaders, and members of the opposition political parties in Nigeria. Let me use Professor Jerry Ghana, CON, as a point of contact to other distinguished keynote speakers for this occasion. Eminent personality and invited guests, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ibadan, the political capital of the Southwest. Across Nigeria today, we're witnessing a level of political concentration that should concern all of us. A significant majority of state governments are aligned under one party. There are open efforts to consolidate legislative control of one party. At the same time, opposition parties are increasingly entangled in internal crises and legal battles that raise serious questions about their ability to function effectively. Taking individual, each of these may have its own explanation, but take point to a pattern where the space for real competition is disappearing. Well, this is not something that we should treat lightly, because democracy is not destroyed overnight. It is weakened step by step until people begin to feel it no longer works for them. Whether one agrees with this concern or not, it is no longer something we can dismiss. Because if becomes effective, democracy itself begins to lose meaning. It must be I apologize up front. The banquet hall is supposed to be working. I want us to use this place today. So I asked them, whatever it will take, we must be inside banquet. So it's possible that have teething problems, but we'll manage through. Democracy is not defined by the success of one party. It is defined by the existence of alternatives, by the ability of citizens to choose, and by the confidence that those choices matter. Once that disappears, what we have may still be called democracy, but it will no longer function as one. That this discussion is happening here in Ibadan is not by accident. Ibadan has always served as the political capital of the Southwest, and indeed Nigeria. And let me sound a note of one that are going on as if there will not be tomorrow. That wet here started from here. Wild, wild west. Back in 1950, this city hosted a conversation that helped shape Nigeria's constitutional future. Those discussions were not perfect, but they were necessary. They were driven by a recognition that the structure of a nation must be deliberately built, and when necessary, in many ways, the gathering we're having here today carries the same responsibility. Let me also be clear about what this means not. It is not a gang up against one man. And it is not about individual ambition, President. It is about the collective ambition of the Nigerian people to have a democracy that is properly defined. This is a gathering about something more fundamental: the survival of a system that allows Nigeria to remain open, competitive, and accountable. Because democracy without opposition is not democracy. It is a slow drift towards a one-party state. And Nigeria must not make that drift. The people, no matter how strong any party becomes, no matter how popular any government may appear, the presence of credible opposition is not a threat to democracy. It is what sustains democracy. If we allow opposition to weaken, whether by design or by neglect, bear the consequences. So this is not a moment for fragmentation. It is not a moment for violence. And it is certainly not a moment to disengage politically. It is a moment to think clearly, to speak honestly, and to act with a sense of responsibility that goes beyond party lines. Nigeria has come too far to pretend that this does not matter. And the responsibility to ensure that it does not go further than it should belongs to all of us. So I welcome you to Ibadan, and I wish us a successful deliberation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Our gathering here today is an urgent response to our nation's call to patriotic duty. My prayer is that history will remember us, that when the nation cried out to be rescued, all of us there answered. That when we had the agonies of mothers that just buried their children killed by bandits, all of us here answered. That when we saw the silent agonies of fathers and husbands and their wives raped by terrorists, all of us here answered. That when children went to bed hungry, all of us here answered. Will ask us, who share our views and support us, but for one reason or the other and not here physically, will answer positively also. The call to rescue Nigeria is not a mere opposition slogan. The evidence is there for all of us to see. Across the length and breadth of our country, insecurity has become a defining feature of our daily life. From the avoidable protracted insurgency and terrorism, to the relentless banditry and mass kidnappings, to the steady rise of violent crimes in our urban centers, Nigeria faces a historic challenge. The statistics are very frightening. Nigeria is now ranked 4th in the Global Terrorism Index. Entire communities are uprooted, families shattered, and livelihoods are destroyed. Fear has taken the place of freedom, and uncertainty has replaced hope. Despite all the claims and posturing by government, the situation continues to get worse. Yet, the government, whose primary duty it is to protect the citizens, carry on with a shocking indifference, as if nothing is wrong. We are a nation that is constantly mourning, a nation crying out for leadership and protection. While these killings and kidnappings continue relentlessly, the APC-led government is behaving as if all is well. The government is preoccupied with election matters and politics of self-succession. The essence of democracy is to provide the people with a choice. When one government fails, like this government has woefully done, the constitution of our land grants the people the power to vote the government out. However, with what we have witnessed in recent times, the ruling party has done everything to deny the people of Nigeria this very right to seek an alternative. In the last 3 years, this government has launched major attacks on the opposition parties. In the last 3 years, this government has launched major attacks on the opposition parties, all in a bid to deny the people the right to choose. They want to foist a one-party state on Nigeria. Institutions that should safeguard our freedom and protect the will of the people are increasingly under assault. The right of citizens to freely choose their leaders is being undermined. The independence of democratic institutions is being compromised. In fact, it is becoming increasingly difficult to describe what we have today as a fully functioning democracy in good form and substance. The task before us is nothing short of a national rescue mission. It is a mission born out of necessity, compelled by the suffering of our people, and driven by the urgency of the moment. I must emphasize, therefore, that this responsibility is far more important than partisan sentiment, personal interest, or personal ambition. What is at stake is greater than every single one of us. It involves sacrifice by every member in the opposition. I have no doubt in my mind that no single opposition political party, no matter how strong, can confront a system so entrenched and so determined to retain power at all costs. What we are faced with is a regime that has shown, in both words and in deeds, a willingness to weaken democratic structures and suppress opposition voices. Let's not make a mistake about this. The move towards a one-party state is rare. It has never happened before in this country, and it will not happen in our generation. The government has argued that it's not their duty to help build the opposition. Yes, they are right. Nobody has asked them for that favor. They call what they are doing to opposition political parties strategy. I call it tyranny. But is it their duty to destroy the opposition, as they have brazenly attempted to do? Can one do what they have been doing and still claim to believe in democracy or to be a Democrat? The answer is certainly no. We must not be in doubt. The forces that have sought to destabilize our various political parties will not stop. Even as we gather here, they are already scheming out to further undermine us and divide our ranks and sow seeds of discord among us. But we on our part must remember where the rain began to beat us. We must remember how we got to where we are today. We must remember what has brought us here. We must remain clear that we cannot confront the future as fragmented entities. We must be united to be able to salvage our nation. It is for these reasons that this gathering and our dealings must be anchored on honesty and integrity. We must put all our cards face up on the table and speak truthfully to one another. There must be no hidden agendas, no last-minute surprises, and no room for distrust. Perhaps more than anything else, the success of our collective effort depends on our ability to build and sustain trust. We are racing against time, and operating within a limited window. The urgency of our situation does not permit repeated mistakes. We must be willing to rise above narrow sentiments and reject parochial attitude that has historically divided the oppositions in this country. This is the time to rewrite the story of coalition building in Nigeria. The record of the APC government is one of complete failure. What remains in its wake is an aggressive reliance on propaganda and a sustained assault on opposition voices. However, we will not engage in a contest of propaganda with them. We will not substitute truth for ignorance. Their reliance on propaganda only exposes a deeper problem, an inability to accept responsibility. Nigeria is watching, and Nigerians are watching. They have been through the smoke screen and the lies. They recognize a government that has failed to meet their expectations and shown no empathy for their sufferings. This is why, as we have repeatedly maintained, the struggle before us is no longer a conventional political contest. This contest is between the ruling party, APC, and the Nigerian people. APC is contesting against the mother who has just buried her child. APC is contesting against the father who works endlessly, yet cannot feed his family. APC is contesting against young graduates who sees no future and against the pensioner who has been abandoned after decades of service to the nation. We are on the side of the people, and therefore, the Almighty God is on our side. Recent changes within the economic management team are themselves a tacit admission of failure. If the system is functioning effectively, you do not replace leadership. Rejigging the cabinet at this late hour cannot save them from the verdict of the people. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me use this opportunity to emphasize that the ability of our democracy rests with the neutrality and integrity of its electoral institutions. When the referee clearly and proudly wears the jersey of the other teams in a match he should be officiating, then the legitimacy of the Nigerians have lost confidence in the electoral body called INEC. INEC is no longer an impartial umpire, and if nothing changes, Professor Ojo Amopitan is about to preside over the most distrusted election in the Nigerian history. The consequences are better left to imagination. Leaders of great parties, let it be said loud and clear that at a defining moment in our history, when Nigeria stood at the edge of uncertainty, we did not falter. We did not allow personal ambition to override the desire of Nigerians. We did not collapse under the temptation of petty partisanship, self-satisfying ambitions. Instead, we chose unity over division. We chose sacrifice over self, and we chose country above all. Let this summit go down in history as the moment when everything changed. Let this be the beginning of a decisive movement, a movement that will restore dignity of our democracy, secure the lives of our people, and rebuild the foundations of our nation. I am very confident that if we stand together with conviction, discipline, and sincerity, no force will be strong enough to stop the will of the Nigerian people. May history remember us for our courage. History remember us for our sacrifice, and remember us for our resolve to save our democracy and our country. May it record that when Nigeria called, we answered with unwavering commitment, and when our people needed us, we did not falter, and we did not fail them. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Your Excellency, the former Senate President, and the Chairman of the ADC, and with that also to recognize all the chairmen of the opposition political parties that are here with us this afternoon. Distinguished opposition in Nigeria, distinguished patriots, distinguished invited guests, distinguished members of the Fourth Estate of the Realm, and distinguished Nigerians. No moment in our political history since independence best exemplifies Shakespeare's immortal proclamation in Julius Caesar, and I quote, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads unto a fortune. Omitted, all the void of their life is bound in shadows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures." Distinguished delegates, distinguished leaders, we are today at the cusp of history. The political stage is set. The dramatis personae are all ready, and time is passing and passing very, very quickly. But one thing is pending, which the world honestly awaits, and that is our action. That is our joint action. This is so important that even our inaction or refusal to act will be interpreted and recorded by us, by history, as an action. Never, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in our democratic history, we faced the appeasement of the opposition as we are currently witnessing. And never have we danced so carelessly on the brink of becoming a one-party state in this country. The current embattled condition of the opposition in our country is the result of a state-engineered crisis, tactically deployed to all opposition political parties with the prospect of putting off a challenge to the lackluster performing APC-led federal government. We are gathered today with personal evidence of this onslaught. We are not speaking from hearsay, no guesswork, but from concrete life experiences which we have gone through and which we are going through, and which, unless decisive action is taken by us, we will still be going through. A situation where renegade party members have been stupendously empowered to create problems within the rank and file of our parties, ultimately to use and to sue the party, leaving us very, very vulnerable. National institutions, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that are created as guardrails on the express lane of electoral democracy have all today either been captured or been seriously compromised. The consequence of this is that our nation has today been sent very close to the destination of either self-help or self-precipice, God forbid. Today, the perception of these critical institutions is at their lowest scale, a point of almost no recovery. The trust deficit has not only increased, but has reached a historic level. Dear friends, dear colleagues, dear opposition leaders, dear patriots, there is an urgent need for us to act, and to act now. This moment calls for deliberate action in defense of democracy, action in defense of our citizenship, action in defense of principles and honor. Yes, this moment demands our collective action, which makes this summit most important and most appropriate at this time in our history. We must deploy knowledge, we must deploy tact and strategy to undertake the onerous but doable task of dislodging the non-performing APC-led federal government in the interest of the survival of democracy and for the purpose of emancipating ourselves and our fellow countrymen and women. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that by now all of us have reached a consensus that there is an urgent need to act, and to act expeditiously. So I will very quickly leave us with questions, the answers to which should point us in the right direction at the end of this summit. Number one, what if our parties are taken away from us and given to their cronies, as they have been boasting that they are going to do? Number two, what if the APC-led federal government continues to double down on the constriction of the political space against the opposition and the opposition political parties? Number three, what if the persecution of opposition leaders continues unabated? Number four, what if the non-performing ruling party and government, INEC, and other national institutions have concluded plans to make the country a one-party state?
Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Oyo State, and all the Excellencies here present, because of time, let me quickly share my reflection on the subject matter of free, fair, and credible election. I stand before you as a Nigerian who, though I left the commission in 2022, I did not leave the idea of Nigeria and question of how democracy will survive in our country. And so the invitation for me to be here, but for the caliber of men and women that have served this country, at some point, and for 2 years, I switched off about this country, and I deliberately put my television station on Chinese station so that I don't hear anything about the country. Not because I hear the Chinese language, but because I've been fed up by the things that I have seen in this country. And so I stand here, not in partisanship, not as a candidate, but as a Nigerian who is interested in seeing that democracy survive in our country. For 10 years, we were in the commission. We established systems, developed tools, process and procedures to ensure that we deal with the historical challenges of election service delivery in our country. As at the time we left office, we had used this system to conduct 105 elections, including governorship elections, using the technology that we have developed on account of the fact that any nation that fails to embrace technology will be overtaken by the chaos of decay and decline. There could be no other time than now to speak about free, fair, and credible election, given that the lights of democracy are going out in Nigeria, democracy that we all fought for. I was detained in Enugu State. I was declared wanted by the government or the military, Oyegu and 24 others, all because of this democracy. And so democracy must work. What gives spice and piquancy to the practice of democracy is the presence of opposition. Any democracy without opposition has in it a virus that may lead to its death. And that is why it's important for all to understand why there must be opposition in our practice democracy. As we all know, every election is a test. I dare say that the 2027 election will be more than a test on account of what we are saying. It will be a verdict, but whether we have learned the lessons of the past and are ready to have free, fair, and credible election is up to us. We have the Electoral Act 26, we have the BILOS, we have the IREC, we have the lessons of 2023. We have technology that are giving us tools. We have laws that are giving us rules. But as you all know, technology, rules are not themselves implemented. They require men and women of integrity to implement them. Because good laws, process and procedure that are not manned by men of integrity will take a country to nowhere. But inadequate laws manned by men and women of integrity will take a country somewhere. And that underscores the importance of election. Achieving credible, free, fair, and credible election is a multi-stakeholder responsibility. And as you all know, it's a responsibility of key stakeholders, and I identify 5 of them, out of which 3 are very key. You have the INEC, you have the judiciary, you have the security agencies, you have political parties, candidates, CSO, citizens. But indeed, the 3 key agencies that are very foremost are INEC, the judiciary, as well as security agencies. The trinity of these 3 agencies are enough to take the poetry of our election from that of manipulation and rigging, particularly the EMB, which is saddled with the responsibility to midwife democratic elections. May I say this here? The conduct of election is all-involving activity that nations embark on in peacetime, because the outcome of election has implications for national security. It has implications for stability and sustainability of democracy. And building democracy is a complex process. The elections are just only the first stage. And therefore, it is periodic election that provide the people the opportunity to exercise their residual sovereignty, having given in the last election part of their sovereignty to a group of people to act on their behalf. Therefore, in an election as coming, it now gives them the opportunity to be able to reject, to elect, to extend, or to elect those who they think should come and lead them. That is the whole essence of having election. And so the outcome of election, if not well managed, as we have seen in several parts of the world, particularly in African countries, in Kenya, where the outcome of election led to almost the country in turmoil. People were killed, houses were destroyed, and so many people found themselves in IDP camps, homeless, and many on forced migration on account of election. The governor, John Reference, the weightier experience. In the First Republic, Second Republic, we are all living witness to what happened. A renowned publisher, Fagbengbe, was killed in Ondo State on account of election. So the question is, what are the key elements that constitute free, fair, and credible election? Two, globally, there are two broad indicators: process indicators, and number two, outcome indicators. Under process indicators, I will focus on only two elements because my paper contains everything because of time. The most important is the sanctity of law. The law that will govern the conduct of election. The landscape of election must be certain, must be unequivocal, must be clear to all and sundry. While outcome indicators will show whether the outcome of the election itself is actually credible or not. Now, with respect to the sanctity of law, which is the basis of some of the intervention I've made in recent times, in the course of preparing for this paper, I have found other provisions that are very troubling. And I wonder whether members of the National Assembly, they actually saw some of these provisions that I have found again just yesterday. And I need to go to those areas so that the essence of this engagement is to ensure that all the political parties that are here, you should be able to immediately go to the National Assembly to present a cornucopia of all these provisions for immediate amendment, because an amendment process could be 1 day, maximum within a week. Those of them who are in the House will see a number of them here. Now, I have, in my engagement, identified a number of provisions which are key to election. Whether we are ready for the 2027 election, these provisions have to be dealt with. Already, those that have identified that you have watched the television, on television, they are there already. That is number section 63, section 60, subsection 3, that has to do with the transmission. Of course, by that proviso, and as the senior advocate and all lawyers that are here would have testified, that once you put a proviso to override the main provision, of course, that is what is going to be relied on. But what is more troubling is the fact that at the level of the balloting, where the will of the people to be expressed, that already been sabotaged by virtue of section 62, subsection 3, which says that the ballot paper that will be used for the election that does not bear the official, mark. By official mark, you mean the various security features that are contained. So what you need to do, as was done in Ghana, when we went on intervention in Ghana, was that the political parties, all of them, decided to ask the EMB, where are you producing the ballot paper and the result sheet? If it's outside the country, that has to be audited. That has to be known where they are producing the ballot paper and the result sheet. That is very, very key for you to take home. Furthermore, if there was a protection, I would have shown something here. Unfortunately, we don't have that. I will just explain to you. As someone who spent 10 years and I traversed almost the entire country in conducting election, Governor Leah Imoke's election, second term election, I presided over that election. That was the first time the Jega leadership piloted e-transmission. We sat in my office, the 18 local government of Cross River State, all the results were transmitted live in 2012. At that time, some of these provisions you have seen, I've identified, you see how some of them, but because we came in with integrity, with the decision that we must make democracy work in Nigeria, we circumvented all the rigging provisions that were identified as at that time. And that was why we were able to achieve that. And so, if you look at what they have said in section 137, this is important. Section 137 says that all the presiding officers, collation officers, returning officers that are going to conduct this election, that at the end of the election, if you are going to tribunal, it shall not be necessary to invite them to the tribunal to explain how election was conducted. It is actually been my view that the burden of proof of how election is conducted should be on the EMB. That it is unfair to say that a man who will return as the winner of election and petitioner will not be the one at the tribunal to explain how election is conducted. Whereas who recruits ad hoc staff is INEC. Who print ballot paper is INEC. Who conducts election is INEC. At the end of election, who is in custody of election material? INEC. Who is in a better position to explain how election was conducted? And that's why I've already argued for inquisitorial method as is done in other parts of the world. It is to be INEC that come and explain. And that is why this is topic I'm going to take on to engage my constituency, the judges that look section 131 of the Evidence Act, section 136 of the Evidence Act, section 140 of the Evidence Act are very clear to the fact that if there is a dispute as to how a claim is made, the onus is on the person who is making the existence of a claim. For instance, if at point A, a party says the election was not conducted, that's a negative assertion. If at point B and the other person say election was conducted, it is the person who said that election was conducted, i.e. INEC or the person who returned, should be the one to explain how that is done, and not the person who said it did not occur. I am going to give a better clarity to this in my engagement in the next few weeks. That is a message to the judiciary. Now, if votes do not count, election becomes a mere ritual without actually voting. My core message to you as I round up is that democracy cannot take place in the soil of absolutism. As political parties, you have a duty. You must, as quickly as possible, ensure that you go ahead and approach National Assembly. First recommendation. Number two, the Nigerian people are watching. They want to see how you are also going to present yourself as a credible alternative in terms of how you also conduct your party primaries, how your candidate will emerge. Nigerians are also waiting to see how you are going to do that. That's a clear message so that they can make a clear decision as to what is going on. You must always engage the judiciary on all of the issues that are being put together. Fidelity to the law, although when we have an electoral act that gives option of obedience, then democracy will have problem. The law will die because nobody will be there. So when you say that an option that if there's a network failure, of course there will be network failure in many places by 2027. So what you need to do is to protect the polling units, ensure that the results that are going to be produced at the polling unit, train your polling unit agent, have all of them there. You will insist on having a right process of winning, so that you also can have a right process to say you have lost the election. Then, of course, today the Electoral Act has now given room for the people who now can produce what they call face document. It is political parties that usually submit candidates with face document. It is not usually not INEC. On the issue of violence, we have to be careful on that. But fundamentally, the role of security agencies, which I want to narrow down very quickly here. We have been getting reports across the country, and it's not the first time. Under the 2026 Electoral Act, political rally is a matter of rights as enshrined in the Constitution, the Electoral Act. Section 99 says that all apparatus of states, at the state level, at the national level, in terms of civic center, television station, all of them belong to the people of this country. And that with respect to television, there must be equal airtime parity that must be given to all. And no political party or candidate should be denied access to any of this facility. It is guaranteed under the law. And interestingly, the Act now says that the only duty of police is to provide adequate security and not to grant permission. Police don't to grant permission. You cannot deprive police of your event as you have done here now without necessarily have to talk about it. But then with respect to venue, the law also says that to address all issues of conflict of venue, what is required is to use the principle of first come, first serve. That is what has been asked to be done. So, as I close here, I want to say that in a democracy, no group of people are good enough to lead without the express view, support, and mandate of Nigerian people. This is what best expresses the idea of democracy. Free, fair, and credible election is what gives spice and piquancy to the game of democracy. Democracy, free, fair, and credible election must not be only a slogan. It must be something that we all must be able to recognize as an obligation that all must do. No nation can rise above the value orientation of its nation. If we don't resolve the politics, we cannot resolve our economy. The politics is so key because development decisions are embedded in politics and political process. And that is why the choice of people that we make in public government will determine whether we are going to make progress. So I want to say by ending that may we give an election where in this 2027, all of us will be able to say as a people, as a country, that indeed we are able to give one thing for our people, which is nothing but the heritage of us, so that we can build a society where there will be opportunity for all and responsibility for all, because the broad outline of the 21st century is very clear. It offers opportunity for people who can work together, live together, and develop new ties that bind them together by having a free, fair, and credible election. Thank you all.